So one of the biggest changes that's going on in corporations these days is shifting from CAPEX to OPEX. Companies are starting to rent rather than buy. So traditionally, if you needed a truck or a forklift or a computer or a photocopier for your business, you went out and you bought it, and it became an asset on your balance sheet. Maybe you didn't have enough cash on hand to buy it outright, you'd arrange for a loan, you'd lease, but there weren't a lot of flexibility in those types of models. If you got the asset and you decided that you needed a different make or model 12 months in, you were kind of stuck with it. But we've seen over the past 10 years, there's really been a revolution in a new set of models coming to the market, bringing much more OPEX-oriented models. And it comes in lots of different shapes and sizes. You can buy things on a subscription basis now. You can buy them as a service. There's been a lot of innovations in leasing, much more creative usage-based pricing models. In some cases, companies are outsourcing entire business functions so they don't have to buy assets and they can leverage someone else's. And that's a big shift from the 20th century model where CAPEX was king. And everybody just expected to have all their plant, property, and equipment owned and managed by themselves. The best example to understand for this is in the technology space. So you think about cloud computing. 10 years ago, most companies used to own most of the hardware and the software that ran their critical business applications. But today, you start a new IT project, chances are you're going to run it in the cloud. And it's running on somebody else's hardware, somebody else's data center. And we're seeing the same kind of innovation happen in the software space. You see fewer and fewer companies wanting to own perpetual licenses for software. Instead, they want to rent them. And it's easy to understand why these cloud models are catching on because there's a lot more flexibility for the buyer. There's a much better economics. You don't need the service at the end of the contract. You just turn it off and unsubscribe. If you don't like the vendor you're working with, you switch to another one. If you're not sure how much you're going to use it going forward, you buy a consumption-based model where you pay only based on what you use and you can scale it up and down as needed. The economics and the cloud business model is now well understood, which is a good thing because that type of flexibility and innovation is coming to just about every business spend category here in the near future. When companies go out and they want new company cars, they're going to buy cars as a service. When they need trucks for their supply chain, they're going to get trucks as a service. When they need jet engines to run on an airplane, they're going to buy jet engines as a service. Wind turbines, solar energy panels, just about everything is going to turn into an as-a-service model. Even boring things like commercial real estate, which hasn't really been disrupted in the past 100 years. If you need floor space in Manhattan or central London or Singapore, you go out and you find a landlord and you sign a lease for 10 years, 15 years, maybe 30 years. And if your business needs change, you need to move into another location, you need more space, you need less space, there's really not a lot of flexibility, you're kind of locked in. But companies like WeWork and Knotel are really turning that model upside down and completely disrupting the real estate space. Now you can come into Manhattan, you can sign a 10-month lease or even something shorter. And there's a perception that it's really only venture-backed startups that are signing these short-term leases, but that's really not the case. We're seeing big companies, GE, Verizon, move to this model because of the flexibility that it offers. We're going to see a lot more of this in the post-CAPEX economy, models like real estate as a service. Companies are moving to this, what I call precision consumption model, where they pay only for what they use when they use it. So gone are the days where you got a bunch of assets sitting around, they're only utilized 10 or 15% of the time, they're depreciated on your books, you're frustrated because you never realized the economic value of it. And this is going to appear in lots of different areas, even areas you may not think of like commercial lighting, replacing their old fluorescent bulbs with more energy efficient LED systems. There are lighting as a service companies. They not only do the design and the installation, they'll do the maintenance, they'll do the repair, they'll do the upgrades, and they charge you based on how much energy you use. So there's a lot of drivers behind this, certainly the venture capital community, but it's really technology like the Internet of Things that is making this possible, because now we can take all these machines and assets, we can monitor their health in real time, their performance, and that's creating a wealth of data that entrepreneurs can look at and get comfortable with different economics and risks associated with those. So in this post-CAPEX economy, we're going to see there's lots of different names for subscriptions and as-a-service models, and leasing, and outsourcing and managed services, but regardless of what you call it, we're going to see a lot more shifting to OPEX and companies renting rather than buying the assets they need to run their business.